Hello, everyone. Defcamp here, and welcome to DefTalk, the talk show that focuses on everything World of Warcraft, whether it's classic, retail, or the players that play it. We're going to cover it all. Of course, we have with us the one and only scientific sensation, Melderon. How the hell you doing, Melderon?
Oh, hello everyone. Very glad to be here. Very glad to be alive and healthy.
And for the second time, which I think is nowhere near enough, we have with us the one and only, the amazing Chimly.
Hello, everyone. Good to be back.
Hell yeah, dude. Great to have you back, Chimly. You know, guys, if you aren't familiar with Chimly, what the hell are you doing with your life? He has some of the best content. Forget about just World of Warcraft. The best content on YouTube. If you're a fan of music, if not, check him out either way. He's a great guy. Has some amazing content. So yeah, Chimly, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Like, exactly right now, I don't know why I've managed to get myself in this position, but I'm running away from a zombie in Minecraft. So actually, I'm just going to switch that game off so I can focus on this.
Get away!
Yeah, this wasn't a good combo to do. But yeah, I'm doing good, man. I'm getting married just under 2 weeks from now.
Oh,
and,
wow.
Yeah, it's exciting times. Then we're moving to Norway a couple weeks after that. So
Congratulations, man.
You're going to become a Scandinavian, dude.
Yeah, no, literally, it's gonna be weird, but all in time for Classic. So I'm gonna get all of that out of the way so I can know life completely. You know, poop socket when the actual game comes out.
Now,
Nice.
I'm assuming that the Norwegians speak English pretty well, but are you going to try to learn the language?
Yeah. I've definitely learned a decent amount. Like, my fiance says I'm pretty good, but obviously, you know, you sort of doubt yourself a little bit. But yeah, I think I'm comfortable. I can talk with people, but the problem is because they know the language and they know English so well, you have to be quite pointed and say, no, speak to me in Norwegian, otherwise I'll never learn.
So remember, all I know is say dog is doge. That's it, doge, right? It's like, no, I'm kidding. This is a joke.
Defcamp has this like interesting like idea of how people in Scandinavia talk. It's pretty funny. Yeah.
Hello.
No, the word for dog is hun, like H-U-N-D.
Okay.
So hound, effectively.
Ah, got a hound.
Hund. Yeah, it's like what is it? What is it in Norwegian? Sorry.
Hun.
Yeah,
But like they
okay.
don't pronounce the D. They just
Oh, hund. Okay, it's like hund in German.
It's crazy because the Scandinavian languages are so different than the other European languages. It's almost has this. I've heard some people speak it. No, it almost sounds like sometimes like a Jap. You know how a Japanese is kind of like a very I don't know. It has similarities to other languages that I've heard before.
I think the cadence. I think you're talking about.
Maybe, yeah. In
terms of the language structure, it is kind of a Germanic thing as well, but it's got the Norse roots to it too. So it's interesting on that level. But as English speakers, we've got such an amazing sort of skeleton key for understanding European languages and other stuff. But because we've got the influence of all the Latin and the Romance languages, and also all the Germanic stuff, and also because the Vikings spent a long time pillaging, you know, England and Scotland, Ireland, we've got all the Norse stuff too. So it's really interesting as I've been learning this language, thinking, oh shit, like that word is like Old Norse. I'd never realized that.
It's really interesting. You're right.
Yeah.
And now you can go over and do your own pillaging.
Yeah, no, no, I'm actually being brought over as plunder, man. I am that which has been pillaged.
Especially you're from England too, so yeah, they're used to that, right?
Yeah, it's Lindisfarne all over again.
Nice.
Oh, what have you been doing in terms of WoW, man? How's the WoW experience been lately? Not, you know, or how's it not been?
Well, it's been interesting. One, I've really enjoyed watching your stream, Defcamp. You definitely got.
Man.
I mean, I like your stream much more than mine. I much prefer to tune into yours because you've got a nice community going on. It's like, oh, it's Defcamp and it's all warm and happy and friendly, and you've got so much bubbly energy. So I'm sort of jealous about, especially that you can play on Classic, because I've been streaming a bit myself, but I've been relegated to streaming retail and talking with the guys on the stream. So, all right, let's open up the WoW tab on Twitch and have a look what everyone's playing. Oh shit, everybody's playing Classic. You know, all these people who like a professional retail players, and then here's me, the only BFA stream. Like, fuck my life.
Oh man, yeah, it's. I'm sorry about that, brother. That's rough, but thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it. Yeah, the community we've managed to get together on our streams is by far the most amazing thing I've been a part of. So, but you know what, Chim? Like, a lot of people I think have gone back to playing BFA now because the new patch has come out. So it looks like the beta has been a little dead the last couple of days, and I think a lot of people are playing the new patch. I guess that came out for what was 8.2. I think they said.
Yeah, I think it's pretty decent so far. I haven't played nearly enough of it yet because it's been nice weather here, so I was outside.
Oh, right.
But that raises a good point in that the servers, apparently, that the beta server has been kind of dead by a lot of people's reports. And it just begs a question of, should they open it up to new people? Or are they purposefully not doing that to sort of... Because there's an argument about not killing the hype when it comes to letting people into the beta server. I think that's totally valid. Like, if everyone could just start playing Classic now and not really get to invest properly in their characters because they know they're all going to get scrubbed away.
And I'm sure they want a good amount of people to play 8.2 as well, and not get the hype away from there, right?
That's a good point. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Also, we have no inclination of the level cap increasing. This is another reason why people aren't playing, right? Because they don't feel like they can. Yeah. They've ran, the dungeon RFD or whatever so many times that they're just tired of it. I mean, I don't feel that way because I could just continually have stuff I can test. But I think for the mass majority of people, like, they don't care about that. They want to just play the game. And if they see a bug, they'll of course report it. But but the funny thing is that I think, there are people who would there are a lot of people who would just play it regardless. And those people are just kind of sitting there just watching or not watching if people aren't streaming it now if the hype's down, which kind of sucks for them too. So
and actually, I'm not sure I even want the invite now because I've been saving myself. I have played private servers in the past. I got into all of this from playing Mystaris, and so I really enjoy private servers. But I've sworn off them since basically the summertime last year because I was away from home for a month and I had nothing else to do with my time. So I leveled a lot of classic stuff, and I'm in this dilemma now. So I'm thinking, okay, it'd be great if I got an invite to beta because then I'd have something to stream that I actually want to play. However, selfishly, I don't want to ruin the experience of classic by sort of, I don't know, breaking the seal of it, just taking the wrapper off before it's actually ready. Yeah.
I think that's the thing that, for, myself, I have kind of made my own limitations as far as what I wanted to say for myself in actual Classic, which isn't that much anymore, unfortunately. I mean, there's only kind of 2 raids that I haven't really fully experienced, so that's kind of where I am. But I definitely know what you mean, and people ask me all the time, who are either never played Classic or haven't played Classic since, back in, 2005, 2006. What should I do? Should I download this server? Should I do this? Should I do that? I'm like, dude, just wait, man, because honestly, you're going to have I feel like, a better experience if you just wait and
less than
have
2
that
months.
Amazing social experience that's going to come, and it's going to be the real thing. It's going to be, well, this or that, we'll see, depending on how, of course, the launch goes and everything, which I'm hoping it will go well. But I think people should just hold off for now. If you're wanting to play right now, we're only 2 months away. That's it. It's really right around the corner. So for a lot of those people who are, itching to play, we're almost there, man. We've waited this long. We can wait another 2 months, And I'm saying that as myself, someone who's in there right now. So maybe I'm not the best person to talk about that, but that's how I feel.
No, you're absolutely right. But how about this? I recorded this really kind of crap video with a camcorder yesterday out in the park, just ranting about this dilemma I've got about not knowing what class to roll and what character to make as my main in Classic, because I've got all these ideas. It's basically between a few different options now. I've narrowed it down a lot, but I'm stuck between thinking, okay, maybe I should actually make some characters on a private server just to see what I should do, so that when Classic launches, I'm not still deciding what to play. But then also, I don't want to cheapen the experience by doing that. And so, what do you reckon? I am in massive identity crisis mode.
I get this question all the time in stream. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't know what to play. Should I play on a private server or play on this so I can figure out what I want to play? I'm like, listen, man, like, what's the rush? If you are still undetermined when you start playing Classic, then whatever, like, take your time. We might have this game for hopefully 2 years or plus. Like, I understand a lot of people, like, they want to get to 60 as quick as they can and all that, but, like, for the most part, man, the majority of people are going to be in the same boat you are. They're going to be trying to figure out what class they want to play. They're going to be dabbling here, dabbling there, and I feel like that, for so many people, for me, that was part of the fun. That was part of the experience. Like, my first character, I didn't like. I had to find my rogue when I first started playing, make my rogue, and I fell in love with that. And I feel like that's part of the natural progression that a lot of people should have when they first play the game, is to explore these classes, to explore the races, to figure out what you actually like, and then to grow with that class, right? Because you may not like the class the first 10 levels, and then boom, say you play a hunter, and then you get a pet, and you fall in love with it. And there's so many things that I think you have to give it a little bit of time. And even if you roll a character and get to level 40, and then like Melderon or whatever level he was, and delete it, and you hate it so much, and that's part of your experience, and then you might love the next class so much more. And I think everyone should kind of try to get that natural experience.
Yeah, I think a good example is like we can use any class as an example, but let's use Shaman for example. And let's say a new player starts playing Shaman and they're never heard anything about them before, and they went on all these guides and they realized that enhancement's the way to level, right? So they level enhancement, they don't really like it, and they get to 60 and they're like, well, now what do I do, right? And then they try Elemental, and then they go in like a PvP setting, and now they have a totally different enhancement versus elemental is like almost two different classes to me when you play them, like endgame. Would you agree, Defcamp?
Yeah, the feel of them. You know what I mean?
The feel of them. Yeah, I mean, like
melee, one's
I mean, the abilities are about the same, but white hitting and shocking versus like blowing people up from a distance with lightning bolts. To me, the difference is so stark. So I think Defcamp has a really good point. It's like the way a class feels as you level in that spec may feel completely different when you get to 60 and you roll something and you do a different spec or have a different role in a dungeon or anything like that. So that's a good point. And I think that makes things harder for Chimley, honestly, because now he's like, well, now I have to level up to 60 to figure out if I like the class or not. But I guess what the point is like, it's, I don't know, it's not as easy as.
How about this?
Yeah.
Because before I say this, I'm gonna crack open a cold one because you guys inspired me when you went to get a drink before we started. Got a beer here now, but I've actually never played at 60. I've only actually gotten to the level cap once on Nastarius on a mage, and then the server was shut down just days later.
Yeah.
So
okay. So here's some things I like to look at, and I tell people that if they're gonna try to pick a certain amount of classes, like first of all, I'm sure you have like 3 or 4 that you have are more of your favorites, right?
Yeah, or even 2 to be honest.
Okay, so out of those 2, make a pros and cons list, right? Make a list of pros for things that you like about it. Make a list of cons, things that you don't like about it. Then at the end of the day, at the end of that list, right, put your okay, maybe one of them doesn't have any healing capabilities. If healing is something that you want to do, make that a big plus. Maybe one of them has doesn't have that much of the end game experience for doing damage. Make that a con. And then at the end of the day, right, what class do you feel that you connect with more, right? Because to me, that is the biggest thing. Like I love shamans but more so I love priests, right? I love the shadow, I love the holy, I love all the different specs. I love the idea of it. I love the lore of it. I love the RP of it. That to me kind of brings me closer to the class than anything. But I think that pros and con list is something that you have to do, right? Because you have to look at, say for instance, mages, right? They have a lot of pros. They definitely do. But some of the cons may be, you're going to be competing with a lot of other people for gear. You're going to be competing with a lot of other people for a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And you may not feel like you shine out that much because there's a lot of other mages and you only have this one was DPS. You can't heal, can't tank, you can't do anything, other things. There are a lot of pros to mages, but there could be a lot of cons for someone like me who wants to heal, who wants to do other things, and wants to maybe explore other things a little bit more. So I think you have to look at yourself and what you really want out of WoW. Do you want to heal? Do you want to tank? Do you want to DPS? Do you want to melee? Do you want to range? And then look at all these pros and cons within each class.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's so many classes. Let's be honest. I'm going to make a max level character for every single class if they give me enough time. It will happen.
I think it'll be. I think these servers will be out forever in some form. Yeah. So.
And this problem that we're all facing is a beautiful problem. It's really great that we have this issue that, oh shit, everything's wonderful. How bad's that? That's really not a bad thing. So for me, it's just what do I want to do first? That's the question really. And I guess I know role playing wise, I like nature. When there's roses, if I walk past flowers on the road, I will stop and smell them. I just will. And so it's either between a druid or a shaman for me, just because of wanting to get into the character.
Right.
So that sort of thing really does help in my mind.
definitely see you as like a druid or a shaman. Yeah, and something that I would look at this shit, Chim, is like, and I will say this: I feel like more so now in Classic, a lot of the hybrid classes will at least be a much more accepted than they were back in Vanilla, right? There, I wouldn't mind bringing a boomkin with me. I wouldn't mind, at least one, or having that 3% spell crit. There's a lot of, I think people have understood more, what to bring to the table and what you can bring to the table. It's not just about DPS, this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, right? I feel like every class in WoW was, I mean. Like, I don't think there's any bad classes. There's classes that I like less, than certain ones. But I think every class was designed so well, put so much, heart into and so much effort into. But I feel like each person kind of has, like, their spirit related kind of thing where like, they're, like, I enjoy a lot of classes, but there's one class for me. And maybe for some people it's 2 or 3, whatever. But for me, there's that one class out there that I will keep going back to, right? Yeah. And that, for me, is Priest,
Yeah. I think archetypically they did a very good job. Like, I can't think of outside of my favorite, which is like the Battle Mage, which which came later. I think every like mainstay fantasy archetype is represented in Classic WoW. To me, the Death Knight was the Battle Mage, and that came in Wrath of the Lich King, and that kind of completed it for me. I mean, but that's just for me. I know monks came in and blah, blah, blah. But when I think like classical Lord of the Rings fantasy, like I think everything is represented in Classic WoW. Like you have the Rogue, which is like the sneaky character. You have, Warrior, obviously, Paladin, Holy Warrior. You have like the Mage, the archetypical. Yeah, you have the Cleric. And you have these little flavorful things like Warlock, which is kind of like a darker mage, and Shaman, which is kind of weird actually.
Like a melee druid or something like that.
Yeah, and then you have the druid, which is in D&D. And so I think when you pick those classes, you're beautifully put into that like archetype cleanly, and it's like this feels right, And maybe of course they're not balanced in every way and everything, but that's more of the mathematical parts of it that I really don't. I mean, I care about it. Obviously, I just put a video literally about math for 30 minutes. But like, I'm a very balanced brain person. I think, which is kind of, I don't know if that's weird or not. But I feel like, 1 week I can put out a video about like art, and the next video I can put out a video about like math. And I'm not a master of either of those things. Maybe I'm a jack of all trades or whatever. But I feel like I can kind of move around that space as a player too. And I think Defcamp's the same way. He can appreciate like the math and the strategy, but also appreciate the class fantasy and the aesthetics.
Yeah, totally. I'm definitely more towards the latter myself. I like to rely on you guys and the Classic WoW Live guide makers, because my expertise is definitely not in actually being good at the game. I'm looking forward to actually learning how to play, but yeah, my main focus is, I suppose, on the role-playing aspect of the game.
Right.
Not that I do a lot of role-playing, walking around and slow walking, all of that. It's mostly just like the feeling of getting lost in the world. That's what really appeals to me.
Yeah, and that for me is one of the most important things, and having the right class to do that with, right? The one that you can identify with the most is very important for me. And I will say something about a lot of classes that were given kind of a bad rep back in Vanilla, for instance, Druids, right? I think a lot of people have come to see, like Druids had a really hard start in actual Vanilla. And I think, first impressions lasted for a while, right? These first impressions, lasting impressions. And a lot of people have this negative impressions of tanking Druids. And I will say this, man, there is not one class out there that surprised me more than the Druid, in just how well they can heal, how well they can tank, how well they can do, in PvP, how amazing they are. And on one-on-ones, I've been surprised more than any other class probably by the Druid, because and I will say that I had this different outlook on Druid, especially in the vanilla sense, and I played one in later BC and in Wrath, and I loved it then, but seeing just what a class is actually capable of under the right circumstances is pretty amazing. That happened to me with Shamans and with Druids. Melderon really opened my eyes with Shamans, and I have a lot of people who have really opened my eyes with Druids. And I got to tell you, those two classes, and pretty much all the hybrid classes, have just really come out and shown me just how powerful they really are.
Yeah, I really enjoy hybrid classes. I really do.
Yeah, me too.
They just continually surprise me. like hybrid classes. They really, really do. Even paladins, which I don't usually admit. But,
I mean, look at the prop paladin. Look at the holy paladin. It's like, amazing classes. The prop paladin's so strong in an environment where you're leveling with another person.
Even holy too, like the illumination plus divine favor. Like it's just kind of it's kind of it's a little broken, but like it's a really efficient like healer, and I can appreciate efficiency. So
so tell me this then, because it's interesting you guys talk about the druid and the shaman, because my instinct was to roll druid because that was the first class I ever played, and I think it speaks to me the most, sort of in terms of a role playing. I want to be a druid.
Gotcha. I see you as Chimly. I do.
Yeah. So I started watching your guys' videos, and you made me think that, oh shit, shaman's so interesting. Look at all those tokens, man. Because I love being a support player, and I thought, wow, that's a big old toolbox. You've got something for every situation. And so I was super down the shaman train. And then I've also seen you guys understand, okay, right, druid's a lot more nuanced than we thought, and blah blah blah. So I've basically been on this journey thinking, okay, druid or shaman. I want to roll druid if I can, but there's two things that are holding me back from it. And I'll roll shaman as my first ult, but the big one was the combat res, and obviously the combat res is super valuable. But I was just worrying if it's going to be some really annoying, stupid handicap. You're in the middle of Gnomeregan or something, and your tank dies.
It can be.
And
it can.
So
be.
I don't know how big of a negative that is, and also, am I good enough to actually play druid? Because it strikes me that with all the form shifting and everything like that, it sort of requires you to be quite a good player to make it worthwhile.
You're good enough, trust me.
And plus, I don't think you'll need to do those crazy shape-shifting things unless you are PvPing, honestly. In a PvE
but I will say this, Chimly, like, I feel like that is where the druid really shines, though. In my experience in PvP, like, and look, that's something that I actually have dabbled with, Chim, and it's not as hard as you think it is. It's just you got to get comfortable with your hotkeys and your keybinds, and that's really it. That's really what it comes down to. Setting up good hotkeys and keybinds, like I would, for instance, F would be for cat form, like hitting F and then hitting F again would bring me back into humanoid form, and then so it's like getting good keybinds, getting comfortable with them. That right there, it's not that hard. It's really, like, I thought that was going to be insanely difficult. Chim, it literally took me about an hour to get down.
Oh, awesome.
But but then being really good at it and knowing when to like shift out and like to put abolish poison on you, like when you're fighting a rogue, so that you can like know when the blind's about to come, so you can have it. Like little things like that. That takes a lot of nuance. It takes a lot of time. But that's with any class. That's with any class.
Yeah.
That's with any single ability.
And also, you want that. You want that level of complexity, because otherwise you're going to get bored.
True.
Exactly. And druids have so much complexity and so much nuance.
Yeah, they're the most powerful heal in the game. They
have them. Yeah.
It's hard to land because it's 3.5 second cast, but it is the most powerful heal in the game.
I'll tell you this though, Chim. I have seen my raid saved by more druids than anyone. Like, having that nature and shamans have this as well, right? But shamans don't have the huge heal that druids have, right?
No.
Having that rank, 8 or whatever, or rank
depends how much
13,
spell power you
whatever,
have.
Healing touch, right?
Yeah.
Crit for I saw tanks at like 1% health get that nature swiftness, huge healing touch, and then like they've saved our asses so many times. I've seen druids who have given me innervate, who have given other,
innervate too. Forgot about that.
Yeah, so they have innervate, right? And they gave it to me, and then somehow they're right below me on the healing meters. Like, imagine if he gave himself innervate, or like I've seen, and this is a really good druid, Scrub Express. I'll put him out there. He's like amazing. He's a really good healing druid. He knows what he's doing. But I've seen druids out there surprise me time and time. Tanking when it comes to and then tanking in dungeons, healing in dungeons. Yes, is the res thing kind of a hinder, but every class has its its downfalls.
Yeah, and that's only in 5-mans, right? And the thing is, like, okay, that could be a considerable part of your leveling experience in 5-mans, but like think about on the Alliance. You have the possibility of a paladin being in that group, and that situation is pretty much taken care of, right?
Or a shaman.
Or a shaman if you're horde. As long as you have, someone else, or a priest. We forgot about priests. Usually you won't have a priest in a 5-man unless they're healing. Yeah. But you never know. But like there's a good chance there's a shaman or a paladin in the group. And in that situation, whenever you form a 5-man, you always have the thought in the back of your head: what is the optimal group composition? And of course you don't have to do that, but like when you're a druid and you're healing, you might have to think, hey guys, let's try to get a paladin or shaman in this group too. You know what I mean? Just in case.
I'll get some jumper cables, I suppose.
As I was going to say, if you're really concerned about it, go engineering to give you another chance to rest them. So if you're really concerned about it, just do that. Go jumper cables, you know?
That's going to be try-hard poverty mode for your first character, you know?
You know, but like say, like how many times, like you shouldn't be wiping that much, and if someone dies, you can battle res them when you get it eventually, you know?
What's a half hour or an hour cooldown?
But it does teach people, you know, like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't pool so stupid next time because we have a druid, we don't have a res, so maybe we'll be a little bit more careful this time and not pool like an idiot. You know what I mean? So maybe, you know, I think there's pros and cons to every situation. You know, people rely on the priest to always be the one to run back and res everyone or do this and do that. So sometimes it can suck to be the only reser, you know? Sure. So sometimes there are some pros to being, you know, someone who doesn't have a res. So,
you know, we should get you guys more in contact with Cargos, and he should like hire you for the U.S. Army, so you just like hype people up before battle. Because I think I'm sitting in Druid now. You've sold me.
Listen, man, Druid is one of those classes that timing.
I feel like just by you talking, I feel like you definitely have a little bit of an edge on the druid anyway over the shaman. So just roll it, dude. Like, I don't know. Like for me, like I'm gonna roll a shaman first, and I'm gonna get him to 60, and that's, you know, I'm gonna raid with him and whatever I can do with him. However, I don't know what I want to do for my second character yet. I'm still debating over mage, warrior, and what I want to roll in the alliance server with Dunedain. I don't know what I want to roll over there yet. So it's like, you know, I like tanking, but honestly, like my plan is to try to tank as much as possible during the leveling experience with my shaman, so that I can kind of fulfill that role there. And trust me, doing it on the beta and seeing on the beta, it's very we can do it. Like there is, Defcamp has healed and tanked as a shaman in the beta already. Wow. I've healed shaman tanks. I've healed a shaman tank with a two-hander. Not even using the shield. So, like, it's definitely possible.
Definitely doable.
Mage, I really love Mage. I love leveling a Mage. Just the self-sufficiency of a Mage is just ridiculous. And, you know, but then I think to myself, I want to try something I never played before. And I even considered flirting with rolling a Prop Paladin, you know?
Prop Paladin's awesome, man. It really is.
So, like, because I feel like I can't be a true hybrid lover until I've tried all of them, right? So, like, it's, you know,
well, what about Druid for you, too? And I will say this thing for Druids as well. So, the leveling experience as a Druid, I was doing one recently on a private server. Amazing, right? You're second to only Hunters in speed because there's just no stopping them, right? I mean, like, as you're doing DPS or regenerating mana to heal yourself, like, you never really have to drink, you know, when you're on the grind. And then to top that off, dude, you're the only other class that has stealth. It's so huge. Like, having stealth, especially if you're rolling a PvP server, man, it is so beneficial and so amazing to have. Like, people sleep on that. Like, having stealth, dude, is just so badass and amazing.
Yeah,
it's
that's true. But here we get to the problem. So if I'm gonna go Druid, Night Elf or Tauren, I'm still torn, man, because I've done so much alcoholic behavior. Like, I've never really stuck to a single faction. Even to this day on retail, I switch around all the time.
I don't think it matters unless it matters to you what, like, faction you want to roll. Like, do you have a specific faction in your head that kind of, like, you synonymize with, or?
I suppose if no, it depends on the expansion, but I'm probably going Horde. But my first ever character was a Night Elf Druid, and I love Night Elves and I love their zones. Problem is that the Alliance in Classic have got such an advantage because their cities are awesome.
Yes, I agree.
Music associated with them as well. It's just like you can't beat it.
It's very iconic fantasy.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
But I hear a but coming, right?
But so but Burning Crusade is going to be a thing eventually.
Yes.
I want me some of that Blood Elf Paladin, right? I want that to be
the Blood Elf starting zone is so good.
It is so good. It's amazing.
Everything the Blood Elves touch is just gold. Even Ghostlands, man. Ghostlands is amazing.
It is. It really is.
That music in Eversong Woods. Oh my god, dude! It is like I think that's just. I didn't think they could up Teldrassil, but they did. Like with Eversong Woods, like with music and the fantasy elements
and the colors, man.
Yeah.
Oh my god, the colors, so beautiful. I'll say this, Jim. In my experience, my first character was Alliance as well, right? I fell in love with Teldrassil. I fell in love with Darnassus, with Ironforge, with Stormwind. Beautiful cities. I fell in love with the quests. A lot of the early quests that you do, like especially in Duskwood. Oh my god! And then I did Loch Mordan. It was amazing. Dun Moreau. But Chimley, for me, and this is my experience, nothing can the brotherhood that I get in the Horde. I do not get that in the Alliance. For some reason, I just don't. And that sense of brotherhood and camaraderie is just puts me over the top for the Horde. And it's that sense of honor, that sense of, we're a band of misfits here together. Like, I love that, and I really associate with that so well. The Alliance comes off a little smug to me. I don't know why. It's just how I guess maybe how I see it. I love the cities. I love the lore. I love the quests. But at the end of the day, man, the faction that I feel more comfortable with and feel like I am a part of is the Horde because of those reasons.
Yeah, I agree, man. I really do. That's why I'm torn. Like I've thought, right, I'm going to go Tauren Druid. I've been pretty set on Tauren because I love Tauren.
Yeah.
And in fact, choosing Druid first is good because if I went Shaman first, I'd want to go Tauren. But now I'm going to go Tauren Druid and then Orc Shaman, so I get the different racials and I get a bit more variety. But
nice.
Yeah, so I've had my heart set on a Tauren Druid thing, but I've been leveling up a little bit on BFA, and my mains at the moment are on Alliance, and so I've been walking through Stormwind and thinking, oh, the park's coming back. I love the park.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess I need to have an alt that's on the Alliance, but I should probably stick an alt.
At least when you play stealth class, you can always stealth in a Stormwind and see if you can.
That is true, yeah.
Also, you can still go to Ashenvale if you're a Tauren, right? You can still experience that kind of beauty and...
Yeah, it's true.
Or Moonglade.
Or Moonglade.
Moonglade is beautiful, yeah.
Which is the best thing about being a druid, let's not lie.
But dude, I mean, come on. Like Thunderbluff and Mulgore is so beautiful. And it has been one of those classes that I've... Ever since your Scorecraft of that frigate of Thunderbluff, I have just appreciated Mulgore and Thunderbluff
Thunderbluff's my favorite Horde city. I love it, dude.
So much more because of your Scorecraft. Seriously, dude. Like,
thanks, dude.
No, I really mean that.
To me, Thunderbluff has it all. It has the music, it has the aesthetics, it has... To me, it's very... I think the planning's fine. Like, I like the fact that the bank, auction house, and smelter are all right in that center area.
Yeah.
And you have the reagent vendor. Everyone is standing right there. Like, you like, Orgrimmar, if you want to go smelt, you have to go all the way down to where, like, past... It's ridiculous, dude. Like,
it sucks.
And the same thing with Undercity. Undercity's, like, cool. I like it. It definitely feels undead and evil, but it's just planned, like...
Oh, fuck that routing system, man. Honestly, every single time I go the wrong way. Every single time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But
I think Orgrimmar is actually my least favorite city. It's a controversial thing.
Central.
Yeah, I like the bank. I think the atmosphere in Orgrimmar in terms of the players is pretty dope. But
it is.
As a city, it still needs to grow on me. I'm going to rank that the lowest, actually.
I mean, to me, nothing compares with Ironforge and Stormwind.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And even Darnassus, like, it's kind of rubbish, but I still want to chill out there.
Has that ancient feel, very ancient. Feels like it's been there for thousands of years.
Yeah,
but that was also planned by, like, a dyslexic architect. But yeah, it's like, but at least Darnassus. But dude, Ironforge is like an architectural, like, wonder. Like, it's awesome. Yeah. And then Stormwind, I'm okay with. I think it's fine. It feels like a city you would run into in, like, Lord of the Rings universe, right? You would go in there.
That's why I love it, though.
No. I mean, but I'm saying it's planned. Yeah. It's not planned as well as Ironforge, as far as, like, it's
right.
Ironforge is very easy to navigate. But I really think that Thunderbluff is the easiest city to navigate in the game. I really do. That's my opinion.
Not for me.
I think it's easiest because you don't need to navigate it. I think because it's got everything in the center, it means that the outside bits they're mostly
class trainers
just to chill out in. You don't need to go there much.
Or quest turn-ins,
Yeah, you just kind of like hang out in the Elder Rise with Hamul, Rune Totem.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
And the fact you can just jump out of the city whenever you want, like you're gonna die unless you know how to get down there, right? But you can literally jump down, like, the rocks and, like, okay, I'm out of the city. You know.
You can also duel in Thunderbluff.
You can duel in Thunderbluff.
Yeah. Ooh, I didn't know that.
I think I don't know about all parts, but I know in certain parts you can. Yeah.
Interesting.
And actually, I never even thought about this before, but it's the only city with a view.
Yes.
That's kind of weird. I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah. I mean, there will never be a city as bad as Exodar. Can we agree on that?
Oh, that is. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Exodar.
I like the aesthetic of the Draenei, but
but even Silvermoon, I think it's a beautiful city, but I don't think it's playing well either. But it's a beautiful city though.
I love Silvermoon. I love the when you're looking for stuff though, it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But the visual of it and the guards, how you go up, oh my god, I love that. Yeah.
Oh, where the guards are all lined up to the throne room or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, so
in
cool.
the fountain.
Yeah.
I wish they fixed it though. It's been broken for a long time. Same with Exodar.
What do you mean broken?
Well, like if you look on the map in Silvermoon, there's a big, with the Dead Scar. It goes all the way through the city. So half of the city is destroyed.
Yeah, you would have thought they fixed it by now, right? I mean, come on. Yeah.
Lich King's been dead for how many years?
I know, right? And that's when it comes to lore and stuff like that. Like Blizzard does a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. Like the whole, I had a huge gripe when they came out with these new Void Elves, right?
Yeah, Zoid Elves.
First of all, after the purge of the north of Eversong Woods, there was only I think like 5,000 Blood Elves left, something like that.
Damn.
Right, and then you got to think how many Blood Elves went into this Void thing. Probably like a dozen. Like it can't be more than like 50, right? So now you're going to base a whole race off of these Void Elves who are like a very small portion of the Blood Elves that like turned against them.
And it gets even weirder than that, man, because I did a video on this ages ago. So, all right, they joined the Alliance at the same time as the like fanatical, light-obsessed Lightforged Draenei joined. It's like, oh, I bet they're going to be great friends.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right. I know. It's like seriously, dude. And like, how many of them could there be? There can't be that many Lightforged Draenei, right? Around maybe a couple hundred at the most. You're gonna base a whole faction on that, like I don't think people realize just how many. And then even after the Burning Crusade, because there was a huge civil war basically within the Blood Elves after the Burning, because they had all the ones that followed Kel'Thas. So after that, there's probably like maybe a couple thousand Blood Elves left. You know what I mean? And then now you're gonna have the Splitter faction come off of it and be a whole faction on its own. Like they do a lot of stuff like that that doesn't make sense to me, and it's like
I think that particular choice, the whole allied race thing, I like some aspects of it, and I think it allows for fun gameplay. If people want to roll it, because for example, you mentioned that there was hardly any blood elves left, and yet most of the horde is blood elves because people are blood elves. So fair point. It's like the actual gameplay of the game is sort of different from how the lore is. Granted, okay, but I think the allied race system has a bit of money grubbing coming into it. They make a lot of money when they
transactions. Yeah,
and I don't hate them making money from the game. Obviously, I want them to make money because it makes the game good. Whatever, that's great. But we were discussing this before we came on the stream, and talking about the different direction of the lore and like how it feels very different. And one of the things I wanted to mention on that is that I think the current version of the game and sort of maybe since even Wrath of the Lich King and possibly Burning Crusade as well, although I think this has become more and more intense as the years have gone on, but it feels like the lore is very top down and there's like some grand narrative, some big arching thing that we're all part of, whereas in Classic it feels like there's no sense of linearity. There's just things happening in a world like where in the world today, there's if you're looking at geopolitics, you've got maybe Iran and North Korea and all these different things going on. It's not just like, hello, welcome to the world. This is the story that's currently happening.
Right.
Loads of stuff happening.
I think Melderon can probably talk a lot on this because with his classic WoW storytelling and all that, I'm sure you want to. I mean, yeah.
I mean,
narrative.
Yeah, it's like the one thankfully we've had Asmongold watched it, but Taladro had a very significant part in drafting that script, but he gave me the idea of using the Silithid story arc to really explain that, because before 1.9 there was like these little quests you would get. It's like Corrin in the Crossroads. He's like, all right, dig up the Silithid eggs, right? And you turn it back, but if you turn it in, you don't get a follow up until you're like level 30 something. Yeah. So you don't know that he has a quest. He has the silver thing over his head, right? So you would only get that quest if you went back to the Crossroads. Then he would give you another quest to kill them in Shimmering Flats. And then you would get quests for Horde or Alliance. You would get quests from Tanarus, Unguro, and I'm missing one.
Faralas?
Yes, Faralas. You're right. Yep. Yeah. So those are the three places. You would get those three quests, and you're like, yeah, go in here and retrieve something, basically, or like find out what's going on in there. And then there's no follow-ups, right? And then 1.9, they drop on Courage, and you're like, oh. Yeah. they built up this whole story arc, or like what these mysterious insects or whatever, like until, and then they plop it on you. You're like, wow, that's so cool. Like I didn't like most people don't know the lore, right? So they just kind of see this, and even myself when I played back then, I didn't know what the hell those bugs were. You know, I was like, okay, you know, and
you can even see that with Nax too. Like you know, you had like the certain liches that you kill in like dungeons, like with RP.
I agree, but I think most people know about the Arthur storyline, right? That's a more.
Oh yeah.
You're right. They still built it up, but I think that's more of a well-known character or a well-known arc. Whereas the Anchorage one, like that was never talked about in Warcraft 3, right? Like I don't, not that I can remember. So that's not something that anyone knew about. But they subtly built it up, and it's so freaking cool, man. It's just so cool.
Yeah. Foreshadowing. They weren't in any hurry.
Yeah. I feel like the more that they try to make the character, feel important, the story kind of lost a little bit of itself. Like, and you know, I think Chris Messon was amazing, like how he built everything. You know, I think, and I still think they have good writers. I do. It's just I feel like they've kind of like. The whole thing that's going on with Sylvanas right now, and how that's kind of like, you know, we've already seen this with the Horde. How like, you know, it's just, you know, and they even like kind of said in the last cinematic that I watched, where Thrall's like, we've been down this road so many times before. I'm like, yeah, we really friggin' have, dude. Like, how many times have we been on this road where Thrall and Jaina team up and they take out the bad person and this, that, and the other. It's just like, can we think of something original, something different?
Yeah.
And for me, like the classic lore and just how much is going on in the world in classic, every zone has its own story. Every place has its own story, and like you have these little story arcs that go on. You have these little, you know, things that go on here and here and here, and you know, Unguro with all this like old ancient like the crystals and the Titan stuff, and like there's all these little narratives and little stories, and sometimes they converge and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're just their own little thing. Where I feel like in the current game, everything has to come together and tie into this, you know, it's just, I feel like after, you know, the Burning Crusade was very awesome, like the Wrath of the Lich King, like they had these narratives, and then Cataclysm even had its own, but then it started to just become like, I don't know, just very unoriginal feeling to me, and I feel like nothing was as good as it was in Classic when things were left a little bit more open-ended.
It just helps the role-playing, because you know, in your daily life, your experience of the world, it's not as though there's this one big crisis that we have to deal with. There's one big quest that everything is related to. No, the world is huge, and all of the problems that might happen in my life, you'd have no idea about. And I guess that's what we're talking about here, really. Like all of these different places, they feel like separate, contained, believable realities. And you know, what happens on a farm in Westfall has literally zero effect of what happens in Stone Talon Mountains. No one gives a crap. And that makes the world feel huge, because if everything's relating to each other, you know, if everything was eventually building up to killing Kel'Thuzad at the end, you know, when you were getting those Silithid eggs, it's because one day we want to get KT. That would just make the world feel so much smaller.
Absolutely. And then the outdoor five-man like elite areas, like they have their own stories too within the zones. So it's like... Like Pyrewood Village is of course attached to Shadowfang Keep, but you know, but like I'm trying to think like Jinthar lore, okay? So that like
and how that tied into Zul'Farrak too with the mallet and all that. Like, that was so cool.
So cool. Like, you have to go to another continent, get a mallet from a temple. Oh, but you got to bless the mallet at another temple, and then you got to bring it back to the altar in another continent, dude. Crazy. Like that's just so well done, and no one knew that until someone picked up that like. You know, randomly those tablets drop off the NPCs in Zul'Farrak. Yep. And that if you click it in your inventory, it says how to do it, right?
Yes.
But like before that, when the game first came out, no one friggin' knew how to bond.
Someone had to find that out.
You know what I mean? And
would they ever do that in the game now?
No,
I mean, they have
absolutely not.
They have these puzzles for like the mounts and stuff, which are cool. You know, they have these like discords that are like basically like made for like these. But when it comes to like an integral part of the story, like, or like, you know, getting a boss done in a dungeon, I feel like they would never do something like that in current WoW, you know?
Well, they're now implementing more and more of that, which I think is really interesting because it's clearly been some of the most successful content they've made recently. And I think it's because on paper to a manager in a big company, it seems like an inefficient investment of developer time. However, obviously, as they've seen with the secret stuff, it's been super popular and a reason people might have resubscribed and all of that. So it doesn't look efficient on paper, but back then when Blizzard was making the game, they had a bunch of passionate, slightly autistic nerds basically, and they're the best people, and they will do stuff like that. That's completely thankless task that no one. That if you had a middle manager sort of deciding what people were doing, micromanaging everything, that would probably not be considered very efficient work. So I think the beauty of Classic comes from the fact that it's that it can't be repeated in a way. It was a series, a comedy of errors that ended up in this flawed but rich tapestry.
That is why whenever someone asks me, would you like to see post-next content, I was like, I would love to see it, but I just don't think it's... I would love... I love the idea of it. I love, having, it's almost like someone writing another Lord of the Rings book. Tolkien's dead, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
Even though those people aren't dead and they're still around, and even though the Classic WoW developers are doing amazing work, they're more in my eyes of a restorative, people. They're not the people that create. And it was a perfect storm of this mess and this and that, and all these things came together. And I feel like if for some reason, it came out and it was just not in the essence of what Classic was, it could really make me look at Classic in a whole different light, and I don't want to have to do that. You know what I mean? It kind of tarnish it. So I love the idea of it, of the post-next content stuff. I think it sounds awesome, but it's kind of wishful thinking in my mind. I don't want to see them actually try it. I would rather just go to the Burning Crusade, honestly.
Absolutely. And the thing is, you can have your cake and eat it too. It just will be a slightly different flavor of cake because, it'll probably go into BC because, my opinion is that Classic's going to be bigger than retail by a long way. And I say that with the evidence of RuneScape, because RuneScape has had a very similar thing happen recently, and the current version of the game, like the RuneScape 3, which is the retail equivalent, is way smaller than current old school RuneScape. And also, old school RuneScape's even bigger than RuneScape was back in the day. So I think that's also possible as well, that Classic will be bigger than Vanilla. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did, at least temporarily. And so, because of that, we're almost guaranteed to see Burning Crusade, because who doesn't love Burning Crusade? That was when I really got into the game, and in terms of atmosphere, you just cannot beat Outland. In my book, it's just so amazing, and I'm really looking forward to getting my teeth sunk into that, but I'm kind of shut it off in a corner of my mind, no, don't look at that. You'll just get too obsessed with it. Just focus on Classic.
The Honor Hold one, dude, was so good, Chim.
Oh
my god, the Honor Hold music. So
I have to resist because I want to do them all. But...
so good.
I'm looking forward to seeing Shadow Moon Valley again. All these, I love the dark zones.
Tarkar Forest. I love Tarkar.
Tarkar is great, but everyone's gonna say, I want to go back to Negron. Of course, Negron's great.
Don't sleep on Negron.
I even love Blade.
No, it's wonderful.
I love.
But the darker zones like Blade's Edge, Hellfire, Shadow Moon. I don't know, I love those places, man. Shadow Moon just feels so, dark and just, I don't know. The meteors in the background and all this, in the Netherstorm with that crazy purple coloration. Yeah.
This is how you know that BC is still Classic WoW, okay? Mm-hmm. I just thought of something. So, I'm going on tangents, forgive me, but in Classic WoW, Brill Tavern, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's got its own unique soundtrack.
Yep.
For no particular reason.
Like that really weird, chimey. What would you call that?
I'd need to listen to it properly just to really figure it out. But I think it's what you might call prepared piano. So basically, you get a piano and you stick shit on the strings, and it makes it sound weird. That's effectively what's going on there. I think that's what it struck me as initially. But it's also playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. At least it's the same rhythm.
What?
And no, man, I'm going to go and do a whole video on that at some point. When my patrons vote that to be the next one, it's going to be great. But no, it's the same rhythm as Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. At least, da 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 dum 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 dum. That's the melody that they're playing in the game, but it's the same rhythm as Twinkle Twinkle Little Star.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think because that's a really sidebar talking about music for a while, but it's really commonly known nursery rhyme and children's song, and it's hundreds and hundreds of years old. Mozart did a set of variations on that theme, so it's extremely well known in Western tradition. Like everyone will kind of recognize that, and because they've perverted it and made it all twisted and weird, it gives this sort of macabre, unsettling feeling because you associate it with children and sort of innocence, and yet you're being vaguely reminded of something like that, but in a really twisted and evil context. So that's genius, right? And also so useless and pointless. Like, why did they make this whole track for literally one building in the whole game? That you're going to be in for like what, 5 quests? Like, how much do you actually visit Brill Tavern, even as an undead that's leveling up there? Hardly ever. And so
true.
That is really just, it encapsulates classic for me, because there was so much thought put into how that music works and like really triggering childhood memories and stuff like that. And so the same thing happens in BC as well. So are you guys familiar with Shalandris Isle?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So there's a piece of music that only plays there as well.
I'm trying to think where that is.
It's on the western coast of the Ghostlands, and it's got some night elf buildings on there. You go for literally one quest.
There's ghosts there, right? Is there ghosts?
No. There's night elves, like spies, basically.
Night elf spies, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about now. Yes.
And it's the actual. I'm not going to go into the musicology as you want me to, but it's really, really.
But it's a unique track.
Yeah, unique, completely unique. As far as I know, they may have used it like a place, but it's literally called Shalandris Isle, I'm pretty sure. And
the track. I'm trying to remember what it sounds like. Yeah.
I can't. What does it sound like? It's used as one of the main themes that they reference in Legion for Suramar, and like all of the what do they call them? Those not void elves. What are they called?
Suramar elves.
Whatever those guys are.
Yeah, they're just like
those guys. I've got a character.
I just listened to a brief section of it, and I know I've never knew. Like you hear it all the time. Like people use it for their videos, but I never knew that's what it's from. That's crazy, dude.
And
it's
so
a beautiful piece too.
That just tells me that BC is still with that whole classic game design of spending a decent chunk of time and money making that, and that is not just a throwaway piece of music. In order to actually make that, there's a lot of thought going into it, because. Well, I think basically off the top of my head, they never actually play the minor third of the scale, and yet it's definitely in a minor key. Like the way they've done it is really very clever, and it's also a beautiful piece of music.
I mean, some of the music in I feel like a lot of the Burning Crusade music is so unique. It's just me, but like so much of the BC music.
Eversong Woods is probably one of the most unique pieces of music I've ever heard. I mean, I don't know if you believe that, Chimley, but maybe I'm just.
I mean, like unique in the WoW universe as well, though. Like it's like everything that came out in the Burning Crusade is just so unique, and I feel like, I mean, look at. I mean, just think about like Karazhan and the Ghostlands.
Because what's that, an oboe in Eversong Woods, Chimley?
The main theme. Well, I suppose there's a bunch of different instruments playing the main melody. The one that is most
like deeper, like the deeper one.
Yeah, that's a cello.
Cello. Okay.
Yeah, and also the most similar to the human voice, the cello. It's got like the similar sort of range.
Wow.
Just briefly, I have done a video on this music on a previous iteration of the Scorecraft series, and the script is ready and waiting to come back at some point. But basically, that they're really clever with what they did with it. The bass line is bom 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 bom, something like that. And it basically is a tritone, an old fourth diminished fifth. It's exactly half of an octave, and an octave is like C to C. It's the same note, just 8 notes up. Right. So the tritone exactly splits an octave in half, and it basically really unsettling, because if you split things equally in music, then basically you don't know where home is anymore, because the way that you know where the home note is because scales have an unequal set of steps in them. So okay, there's this kind of shape of steps, therefore I know that this place here is home. But if everything's equal, it's sort of amorphous and you don't know where home is. So that is part of the reason why tritone sounds really weird. But in the old days, it was referred to as diabolus in musica, literally the devil in music. It sounds really dissonant and gross, but they use like a little seesaw pattern of like 1 and sharp 4, like 1 tritone, as the basis of their whole harmony. Like if you listen to it, the bass is playing those 2 notes over each other over and over again, and they harmonize it so that it feels okay. But because they've got such a tragic story, the Blood Elves, it fits them perfectly. It's like this most dissonant possible interval is how they base their entire music. and so it's just bittersweet sadness.
Like Lament of the Highborn. I mean that came out pretty Day too, right? When they started that. Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah. Basically, Lament of the Highborn is the Eversong Wood soundtrack.
Right.
With the voice put to it. Get this. This is going a bit deeper than I was expecting to go. So, in my dissertation, I was talking about. Oh, well, it's a bit too much for this stream, but basically, when is music? Where does music come from? So, there's a concept in film musicology called diegesis. It comes from narrative stuff in literature originally, but basically, if you see a guy in a film and he's got a gun and you see the gun on screen and he shoots it and you hear a gunshot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That is called diegetic sound, and the same goes for music. If you see a guy playing a piano and then you can hear the sound of a piano, that's called diegetic sound. Basically, it means that is from the narrative world. It comes from the world you're viewing. But the soundtrack, that's what they would consider non-diegetic. You can't see the source.
Nothing's producing it. Nothing you can see is producing it. Is that kind of what
exactly?
We're okay.
And my dissertation was basically looking at that concept, which was taken from film musicology into game musicology, and it's like, no, guys, that concept doesn't work here, and for various reasons. So, for example, in Thunderbluff, you hear drumming in the soundtrack, right? And the soundtrack's always non-diegetic. That's how they would generally consider it. Mm-hmm. But all right, you're telling me this is non-diegetic. It doesn't come from the sound world, but there's drums lying around everywhere. There's a literal shop that sells drums that the players can't even interact with, but they still put it in the game. And it's surely this is like quasi-diegetic. It is implied to be emanating, but it's always just around the corner. Same as a Blood Elf dude playing a solo on his cello, just around the next corner. And it really brings you deeper into the world. Like I could talk about
the troll zones where they're banging on the drums and and
the didgeridoo as well.
Yeah.
You can the music of classic is so brilliant because you can literally believe that the people that live there are playing it.
Yes, I totally get that. I mean, like Eversong almost sounds like you're hearing the music like out of the zone, like the zone is playing.
Yeah, or like that inn you just passed. Someone was just playing the cello. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or
okay,
something.
So come with me here because follow that thought. So in Eversong Wood, you make a new Blood Elf character, right? And you're being just washed with this glorious music the whole way through. It's just bathing you in this sort of blood red, golden hue of this music. You hear the cello playing this really impassioned melody, and they're literally playing the Lament of the Highborn. They're just not putting the voice to it yet, and so it's the same music entirely, same melody. It's just like without the choir, without the singer. And then at the end of the Ghostlands, which has some variations on it, you get this locket of looting some ghosts in the Windrunner estate, I think.
Oh yeah, I know the Windrunner. Yeah, the locket. Yep, that's it's one of the sisters or something that died, right? Or, yeah.
No, well, the sister died,
like
but it belonged to one of the sisters. Yeah, I think they just left it or something like that.
That's right. Yeah.
You loot it, and then it tells you to go and give it to Sylvanas, and you do. And when you do that, it triggers her getting this chorus of banshees out, and they are the backing singers to when she does her performance of the Lament of the Highborn.
Yep.
All right. So this music that we've been hearing and being bathed in this whole time, which is ostensibly non-diegetic, like it's just a soundtrack they've put over the game world, but it's not coming from the game world. And then Sylvanas literally sings it to you in the game world as a diegetic piece of music. It's like, okay, shit, right? This is completely different. It completely breaks how video game musicologists think about music. And it's like, okay, this has to change. That was basically what I did my dissertation on.
That's so cool, dude. That's
fucking awesome, man.
Yeah. So all the stuff you were hearing, you were looking like you have glasses on, for example, and you're looking at the game world through your glasses, and the soundtrack is the glasses that you put on over your eyes. So there's like a layer between you and the world, right? And then all of a sudden, Sylvanas whips them off and says, "No, this has been the game the whole time. This music is coming from here." Yeah.
Can I just say, the first time I ever heard Sylvanas sing "The Lament of the Highborn," I like literally almost like it was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. Forget about in the game, like, and then knowing her story, hearing that song, and then just like kind of being like there for it and like seeing it is fucking amazing.
Yeah,
it's just
that track
a
and
game that can put you.
Good. Yep.
I'm just saying a game that can put you into that in that kind of state of mind and that kind of feeling is just was unheard of for me. I never had a game kind of put me into that kind of.
Yeah, I mean, we had games that had good soundtracks before, but never felt like Zelda, to the level of kind of just sitting there, stop playing for a second, and be like, "Holy shit, this is a really awesome piece of music, you know?
Yeah.
And the only other one that ever made me do that was Grizzly Hills. Like, to literally stop playing and was like, this track is fucking beautiful. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I can't even appreciate it on the level that you can, Chimley, because you can actually see the notes, right? I can just hear it. And
don't belittle yourself, man. It's just as important. Like, what you have is just as beautiful. But this is the real difference with the Lament of the Highborn, because Grizzly Hills is wonderful because it's an arresting melody. It's beautiful. It's just wonderful piece of music on its own. If it was nothing to do with the game, you'd still love it. But what's amazing about the Lament of the Highborn? Imagine if you're sitting in, you're having a conversation with your mum or something over dinner, and then you're just thinking about something randomly in your head. Obviously, you're just talking to yourself in your brain. No one else can hear it. And what Sylvanas does basically is when you come to her with this locket, you're not expecting anything. It's like, oh, just found a thing. I'm going to hand it to her, get a reward. Sweet. And then she sings to you the thing that's been in your head that you've been under the impression that no one else can hear. And she's like, no. You were in the game the whole time. Like, and it just sucks you in. It's like, oh shit, this thing that I thought was in my head and not really a real part of the world, no, it's real. And it just makes it actually gives the world a whole sense of reality that it didn't have before.
I will say this about Grizzly Hills, though. When I'm there, I almost feel like the landscape is like playing the music. Like the hills and the water and the streams is like the instruments almost in a way.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like I feel like it's bleeding.
It sounds like nature. Does that make sense? Yeah. I don't know if that really makes sense, but like it does. Like it sounds like nature. It sounds like a forested landscape in some way. That's also in a northern climate because it feels warm and cold at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, the main instrument that they use for that, it's not a violin like a fiddle, as far as I know. It's a Scandinavian instrument that's very similar. I forget the name for it, but as far as I know, like some Nordics in the chat, please comment and let me know because I'll be using that as a research. I just can't remember what it's called. But it's doing that, but it's also using some sort of mode, which basically is a different kind of scale to what, like major and minor are. So major is the Ionic mode and minor is the Aeolian mode. But basically a mode is just a pattern of notes, like a pattern of spaces between notes all the way up the octave, right? And in a lot of the music in Warcraft, instead of using major and minor explicitly, especially in Grizzly Hills, they'll use a different mode that's more folk inspired. So folk music before we had super rigid minor and major stuff. Basically, they have a lot less... this is a bit too music theory, I guess, but the problem with major and minor stuff is it generally tends to want to build up tension and then release it. And the modes that you hear in a lot of folk music, which they use in Grizzly Hills, they don't do that nearly as much. Basically, they don't have dominant seventh chords, and because of that, it makes the music feel a lot more timeless and more appropriate to a piece of woodland that never it's there always.
It's there forever,
it has that timelessness of the music. Yeah, it doesn't have as much of a sense of momentum. But anyway,
there's no climax. Essentially, right? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. But also the instrumentation is so perfectly done. So they have that little that little string instrument. I forget what it's called. But also they have a clarinet that is just the clarinet is one of the most beautiful instruments. It's very warm. Sonorous sound. Like,
I have a question. So like obviously I've played all the expansions. Very little of BFA. I think I've played like maybe 2 hours of BFA. So I don't know that much about the music there and all. Right?
Is it a Hardanger fiddle? Sorry to split in.
Oh yeah, that very well might be it, man.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to ask. Yeah.
That rings a bell.
So I something to me like with I don't know if it's the storyline, I don't know if it's my memories or what, but I feel like the music even like some of the I think some of the Wrath of Lich King music was amazing too, like Invincible. I feel like I remember that music and it's more memorable to me than like say Soramore music. And is it because maybe that I was so much more invested into the story, into the lore, and I felt more connected to the game then? Or is it a difference in the music? Is the music, I feel like the music of Burning Crusade, of Vanilla, like it really, like I could hear it and I could see the zone and I could know what I was doing there, and I felt so much more associated to the music, and it brought back these clear, distinct memories, and I had so much more of a connection to the story and the zone and the music and all this. But nowadays I'll hear a song like, oh, that's really pretty, it sounds amazing, it's really good. Because I will say this, something that hasn't gone down, I feel like, in WoW is the music. The music, I feel like, in WoW has always been really good, but I feel like when the game was better, the music was better in a way. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I totally do, man. With the disclaimer that obviously because we played it at such formative years of our lives, and because it's something we are very nostalgic for other reasons, that definitely factors into the appreciation of music. All right, disclaimer aside, the music design is very different. So, like, for me, when I do Scorecraft stuff, obviously I look at the music files, just not within the game. And there's only a few minutes of tracks for each zone in Classic. And actually, not even like that. Hinterlands and Elwyn Forest is the same track. So that's a whole other kettle of fish. But in BFA, for example, you'll have like 20, 30 minutes of music for each zone.
Right.
And so there's so much more to remember. And also there's so much more filling that's not like the big climactic bits. And in Classic, basically, they don't put as much music in there, but your brain fills in the blanks effectively. Like it's the same as not showing the monster in as much resolution, or just showing the shadow. Your brain paints a better picture than reality could ever achieve, and so that's an aspect of it. But also, I think the music nowadays is used far more often to provoke a sort of adrenaline response in the player. So, for example, we were saying that Suramar music isn't as memorable to you. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, that music is built off references to other elf musics from the game previously. So it's literally referencing Ashen Vale and the Shalandra I mentioned before, all of the other Night Elf musics and that sort of thing. It's referencing there, saying, hey, guys, this is another elf culture. Look, we're even going to do this with the music as well. So you can imagine that this is a branch of elves that they have the same history, but they've just gone through a different process, and this is what's turned out these themes. That same starting principles, different results. Super clever. But there a lot of that music was also spooky brass. It's like big blaring trumpets and stuff. It's like, oh no, the Legion's here, scary. I'm all tense now.
I feel like there's a lot more of that nowadays.
Yeah, and that's cool. It has a good effect, but it's not something that you would ever listen to. Right. It's not something that you would ever like sit back and relax to, or just get immersed in the zone. It's always keeping you on edge. So that might make it a little bit less nostalgic.
That's a good point. I think there's a lot of that in the current game where it's like trying to okay, this is a tense moment. There's a lot of action going on. The music's going to replicate that. It's going to basically try to enforce that in you. So it's not so much of a song like the Eversong Woods, or it's something that you can listen to while studying or meditating or whatever. And for me, I think like I've associated so much of the lore, and I feel like so much of the lore and the music of the old style just went so well together. Like it enhanced it. I feel like the music enhanced the lore enhanced the music, and this, that, and the other.
Definitely.
And I don't get that feeling as much as I used to, and that could be for very reasons for why maybe I had to look at the game in a negative eye nowadays and look at this, that, and the other. But I will say there has been some times where I've played recently and like, oh my god, this is an amazing track, but I've never gotten anything that I have ever since. The Wrath was the last time that,
with the exception of the Grim Batol soundtrack from Cataclysm.
The Grim Batol soundtrack, it was amazing, and there was actually some good music in Mists of Pandaria that wasn't like
too Asiatic. A lot of it was way too Asiatic for me. Like, and that's fine. I mean, that's some people like that.
I love the Asian culture. And I love that, but I felt like it was being forced.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it felt
the problem with the expansions like that is that the Classic was like 5 expansions at once, so. It's hard to, if you have a whole Pandaland expansion, it's going to be a lot of Panda flavor. Fair enough. Like that sort of comes with the territory. But there's still great music. Obviously, I'm painting with a very brushstroke. There's amazing music in every expansion. And in fact, BFA's got great tracks too. 8.2 has got great music in it. But it's interesting that we highlight Grizzly Hills as being the most memorable track of Wrath of the Lich King, because actually it's got nothing to do with the Wrath of the Lich King.
I think Invincible's probably up there as well for me.
Okay, true.
Wrath.
Yeah. But Grizzly Hills, it's the only time in that entire expansion that you can relax. Like the threat of the Lich King doesn't
Good
exist
point.
there. And there's this oasis of calm, and you hear this music, and it's like, oh no, Azeroth's amazing. I wish I could live here. And
I feel
it's a moment like that.
I feel like that in Sholzar as well with the do 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 do.
Oh yeah.
Do. It's very relaxing there as well, and I feel like that and Grizzly Hills are probably the only two places where you feel like you could wake up in there and not even know that you're in Northrend. You know what I mean? I almost feel like you're further away from the chaos than anywhere. But then
so,
if you're in Howling Fjord, if you're in
Burning Tundra.
The Burning Tundra, or the what was the ice place in the no, the very bottom.
Well, Dragonblight.
Dragonblight. Like the Dragonblight, I love the music there, especially when you go right south of the Forsaken. If you go right south of the Forsaken stronghold, there's that like
where the shores
place
are.
where all the where the shores are. There's that. It was like an alliance.
It was Arthas's people he took to Northrend on his first expedition, and he killed them all.
That music there, whatever. It's so good, but it's like a twinkly kind of like you feel like you're in this forest, but you also know that you're in Northrend, and it's like But like there's stuff like that where that music is just so the zone, and I don't get that feeling as much as I do. Like you know what I mean? Like it's so like feels like. That music, that zone is bleeding that music to me, where I don't get that in a lot of the other things nowadays. So it's just really cool to see how the transition has kind of, like you said, it's going more into this. It's trying to tell the player that okay, now something hostile is going to happen, and this, that, and the other. Where I feel like back in the day, you could get lost into this, and it was much more exploration, and I feel like you had much more freedom in the game back then, even in Wrath. And the music, I think, really portrayed that as well. There was much more freedom that you could really just explore. It felt so much more mystical and mysterious, and but nowadays it's like you're being kind of forced into what the narrative is.
Yeah, and obviously we are glossing over some amazing music that is very wonderful in its own right. So I don't want to get accused of sort of
no, I don't want you. No.
It's just like a really zoomed out view of like the general trend of it all.
Right.
But yeah, I think generally speaking, the music that really stands out that people say, oh, this track in particular, it's often the most restful sort of music, or at least it doesn't have that sense of impending danger, at least not as frequently. The tracks that people generally highlight as their favorite ones, I think, this is just a thought I've had whilst we've been talking today, but there's a possibility that the reason that those are so memorable, for example, Grizzly Hills, for example, Ashen Vale, and that sort of music, it's because just for a moment, whilst people are listening to that, they'll relax whilst they're grinding, whatever like that. They'll think just for a moment that it's real.
Yes.
They're nostalgic for a real place that they went to, and that music conjures them back there. And when you're feeling like you're under attack with the more aggressive music that's trying to literally heighten your adrenal system, like it's making you produce hormones and stresses you out on purpose, and that's fun. But you don't fondly remember the sense of feeling like you're in a foreign home, like a place that you wish you yearn to go. You don't get that feeling when you feel like you're being chased by the Lich King, for example, or Deathwing.
And it's very interesting to see how the lore and all these other things have changed as well. And I don't know if that it really cuts into the gameplay aspect, but I'm sure. I think the combination of all these things definitely did have an effect. And it's just. For me, I think a lot of it is the nostalgia, the nostalgia of what I feel like. I just went back and listened to this Dragonblight one that I just posted in our track, and right at 2:20 is like when that piano starts, and it's like this piano, and I feel like that music right there just totally embodies like what I feel like in like a wintry kind of like forest. You know what I mean? And it's just amazing how strong nostalgia is, and like I can listen to that now anytime and I'll feel like I'm in some kind of like wintry forest, even though it was in a game and I was on a character in a forest in Dragonblight. Now anytime I hear that, like it's automatically I feel like I'm in like a wintry forest, and to me it's amazing how much power the music has, and the ambiance and the lore and all this. And I think that like well,
I'm just listening to it now, and it's actually interesting that it's got a lot of aspects that are reminiscent of Dunmurra. Because and I've been thinking about this with wintry music for a while now, that there's a few things they generally tend to have in common, at least in Warcraft music, and often a lot of reverb. So there's a lot of like echoing and sounds that sort of are unnaturally elongated, which makes sense in a spooky context here as well. But you have that, and then generally quite high piano, like twinkly notes at the top of the piano, that sort of they feel almost as like, little icicles dropping to the ground.
Yes.
Obviously, that's not what they sound like in real life.
Right,
It makes you think they're all the same. And I wonder if it's because, I think I might have even said this to you before, but if you have snow covering everywhere, it muffles all the sound.
Yes.
And it's only the high-pitched stuff that really travels. I wonder if that's part of it.
That's crazy, and it gives me that warm, fuzzy feeling that you get when snow falls.
Oh,
like
yeah,
for me, yeah. It's just it's like I feel like it's very sometimes underappreciated just how many the people who did the music in WoW. They are just so.
I think you were saying, really, yeah. So just real quick, I think you were saying before that a lot of people don't. You found in your experience, a lot of people kind of scoff at video game music, Chimly.
Well, yeah, in the academia, I suppose, like you can probably maybe have like a more scientific take on it. Like I'm sure similar things happen in the science world as well, but
perhaps, yeah. I don't know if there's a good comparison, but yeah, I'm sure there is.
So generally speaking, that if you're in a music university, there's certain composers that they're super popular. So all of the classical greats, they're all part of what they call the canon of classical music. So like it's the Hall of Fame, effectively, the people that are recognized as the people who really made the difference, and they're the music that we remember. But there's lots of people that we've forgotten, and people that are criminally underrated. And then that's all sort of historical stuff. And as it comes into the 20th century, and especially more contemporary 21st century stuff, there's a tendency, it's kind of a bit postmodern-y, to like music and to really promote and to say that this is amazing, this is wonderful, stuff that nobody would like listening to. And again, disclaimer, I just listened to some concert with like recently composed music, the composer was there in the concert. It was great. Like there's amazing music being written now. However, the stuff that's got the most, if you can imagine, like snooty, stuck up their own arse sort of postmodern professors, those types, they will like stuff that's screaming into a microphone and like pooing on the floor of the concert hall. Like that's amazing music.
Oh, like what's her name? John Lennon's wife, she did that recently.
Yoko Ono, really, yeah.
Yoko Ono just screamed into a microphone, and that was like art,
Okay, well, for example, my fiance, when she took this lecture series, this class on contemporary musical performance practices, and the dude that was doing the class, and one of the first lectures on it, he was giving examples because they were going to have to do their own assignment, like their own performance thing as part of their assignment, and so he was giving examples of good students' work from the previous years, and one of them was this girl had gone around the city and left peas, like the vegetable peas, out of the pod, just little green peas, on in bus shelters. As you're waiting for a bus, a little seat thing, and she just left peas there in various bus stops across the city, and they dried out, and that was a great contemporary musical performance. All right.
What?
So, yeah, and I did my presentation. We were forced to take a module on contemporary. My presentation was on a piece, I've forgotten what the composer's even called, but she's like really famous. Similar to that dance thing that Defcamp was posting.
The power dance. Melderon, you have to watch that when you get a second.
Yeah, like overlay it on the stream. Like that's the same thing goes in all aspects of art at the moment. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
This girl lady that I did my presentation on, the piece of music was a T-shirt upon which was printed basically instructions to learn how to skateboard, and then point 2 was imagine your go and watch other people skateboard and watch people do it, they're like professionals, whatever. And then point 3 was imagine your perfect skateboarding route and imagine what tricks you would do and which way you would grind a rail. And then step 4 or something like that was play that. That was an amazing, wonderful piece of music. It obviously doesn't sound like anything. It's just whatever you say it is. That's
right.
it.
Why did you look at this video? Sorry.
Yeah, man. Okay, just imagine that in the context of music. That same shit exists.
Right.
Okay, That's what that is generally what some of like the academics.
Yeah, I will put that video in the description if anyone wants to see it.
Yeah.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like that's some of the stuff that like the contemporary music pushes and favors and thinks is, oh, that's so intelligent. Oh my god, that speaks to me, or whatever.
Right.
And they respect that, and yet they'd scoff at the score of a film. Or if I, for example, said, "Oh, are you familiar with the work of Jeremy Soule, or are you familiar with the work of Jason Hayes or Derek Duke?" They'd scoff at it. A, they wouldn't know. Like when I was doing my dissertation on game music, no one in the entire university, like the leading research university in the UK for music, none of them had a clue. There wasn't a single book on it in the library.
Jeremy Soule's amazing too, dude. Unbelievable.
Yeah, he is. Absolutely amazing.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Sorry.
As far as I'm concerned, the genre of music, game music, is the continuation of classical music. You know, that other stuff we were talking about there, it can be damned. I don't care about it. There's some great contemporary music being written. There's a lot of shite being written too by charlatans that are just getting paid to basically insult the art form, in my opinion. But there's all of this amazing music that is being written and is being financially successful. Like people clearly want it. The market has spoken. People like listening to it. They turn their noses up and think of it as lesser for some unknowable reason to me. So that's part of what I'm trying to do. Like I'd love to eventually, you know, through just sheer force of numbers, say, hey, look at these videos, institutions, look how popular they are. Look at this music that's actually really fucking clever and intelligent. You might learn a thing or two. You know, can we respect this now, please?
Yeah.
I don't understand how anybody could listen to Grizzly Hills or like the Skyrim soundtrack and not be like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" Like, I'm sorry, I take the game out of context. I had the Skyrim soundtrack. I play the Skyrim soundtrack whenever I do any work on the computer. I always do it, like on loop. And my mom came down. She said, "This is beautiful music," and I'm like, "Yeah, it is." And I didn't tell her where it was from, but like the fact that she walked down and heard it and acknowledged it as beautiful music, it doesn't matter if it's made for a game or not, right? It's like
sort of people I'm talking about would argue whether beautiful music exists, right? Like that's the sort of people.
Oh, right, of course, yeah.
Not everyone, but the people that are responsible for that, yes, they do think that. I disagree, but I think I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say here. The music, because basically I think some of the reason this happens, obviously postmodernism, but they're always striving, okay, let's do something new. It's like, no, actually, we've basically figured out music. There's a limited number of things you can do that sound nice together, and we've found loads of it. But all of the stuff, like all of the really pushing the boat out, like atonal dissonant stuff, doesn't sound that great. People don't like listening to it so much. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that if you're going to value this, let's also value the stuff that people are enjoying. It's like, well, there's nothing new there. You know, this isn't pushing the boat out. This is sort of what's done before. It's like, and people like it.
I also think a big arc of this to me is like how games are not like really considered like an art. Like so many games out there are such amazing pieces of art. World of Warcraft, Skyrim, Shadow of the Colossus. I remember the first time I played that game, I felt like this was like one of the most amazing, this is art. Like this is what, so many people have put so much time and effort into, and it's crazy how some people scoff at it. And I'm sure there's games out there that are shit and this, that, and another, but like it should be considered, a piece of art. And this is something that, I think a lot of people have trouble kind of like seeing that and understanding.
It's not necessarily a piece of art. I'd say video games, obviously, like with the disclaimer, there's shitty mobile video games. Obviously, not everything applies, but for like proper, high quality, respected video games, like the stuff we've been referencing, it's not art, because opera is not art. Opera is a meeting of many arts to create something by their combination that's greater than the sum of their parts. Opera is not about music; it's about costume, and it's about stagecraft and set design and lighting and directing and script writing, and it's about so many things that it's not just an art. It's
like an orchestra. Yeah.
It's so many arts combining their qualities to make something that's greater than any of them on their own.
That's a good point. I really like that. And WoW is just one of those things that I think, especially classic WoW, how it came together, how it was created, the people that worked on it, the passion that people had, the creativity that the people had. Will we ever see anything like it again? That's the question.
Yeah, I think we will actually. Not from Blizzard necessarily, but because we're going to see this big experiment, I suppose you'd say, of classic WoW. It's being tested. Like all of the principles of design, guys like you who have been just dissecting the actual mechanics of the game, and I suppose people like me who dissect a bit more of the aesthetic bits of it too.
Absolutely,
sure.
We've figured out a lot of how this game works and why it's so great, and now we're saying, okay, market, is this actually popular? Like, do people still want this in a sort of janky, slightly broken form that's not really updated to the modern standards of graphics and all of that? Will people still like it? And I think the answer is yes. And so people who are like designing, learning how to design games that are starting up indie studios now in like 5 years' time, they'll look at this and see, well, hey, shit, like this is a blueprint. We just need to copy this, copy the mechanics and copy like the game design principles.
Yeah.
And make a completely new world, and it'll print money. People love this because it basically encapsulates the hero's journey. So I think it's definitely going to happen, just maybe not from Blizzard.
I agree. But I think some people have tried to copy it and have failed miserably as well. Maybe because they try to get too much of the, looked too much of the monetary aspect of it, versus, this is what works. MMO, do this, do that, and it'll be perfect. I think you have to have the right amount of creativity as well and artistic value, and not look at it as just like, let's do it and try to make as much money out of it as we can, because nowadays, like, even though people hate absolutely, like, in the gaming right in our world, like the way people look at MOBAs and this and the other, it's still the number one cash making kind of game out there, because of things like what do they call what's the name, transaction microtransactions, and people buy, even though like it's fringe, like hated upon right now, but it's number one kind of like games out there, and I think that right there is like the issue of what so many of us we're wanting games wherever you are and having on your phone and a microtransaction part. Like, are we a dying breed? Is like what I'm trying to say, is the console PC gamer type of person a dying breed, or is it all the future just going to be this mobile type thing? And that's my worry, right? Is that people see how much value and how much money is into the mobile type thing and all that, and they are just starting to neglect the PC gamer and the people who value the things that we do in games, and that's my worry.
Totally, I completely get where you're coming from, and the same stuff's been happening to the Elder Scrolls before as well. Like a very similar thing. Like the industry's transformed, but it's because this industry has just been born, and we're watching it develop and like figure out what it is. And it might well be that it's completely separate industries that are just grouped under this heading of games. So would you expect something like The Avengers to have the same audience as a cult film like The Matrix, whatever?
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Exactly. So there'll be a market for this sort of content always, and this is far more evergreen. People love this stuff because they feel like they're investing in a real, actual, tangible place, and they're making real relationships with people, and getting something that makes them feel like their lives have more meaning than they otherwise would. And that's so much more valuable to someone long term than getting the next skin on Fortnite,
Yes.
So I think as people get older, obviously there'll always be new young people, but I think the market for something rewarding like an MMO, I don't think it's going away anytime soon, because it's more than just a game. It's a place.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that, what, that made me feel a lot more hopeful. So thank you. Like,
yeah, me too.
Sometimes I try to be positive person in this and outlook on things, but sometimes you're looking at the way things are going and how things were, and seeing where things have been going recently. It's very hard. But there are those games out there that completely, and a lot of them come from these indie companies, and just surprise the hell out of people. Maybe these gaming corporations like Bethesda, Blizz, maybe their time is over, and maybe it's time for these smaller indie companies to rise up and make their name, and so it could be just the start of something new, or
like a lot of these big companies, they're so inefficient, and they're all based in Los Angeles or like California, so they've got so much more cost required. So if you want to pay a group of people to make a video game, you've got to pay them wages to allow them to survive in one of the most expensive places on the entire planet, if not the most. So you look at somewhere like CD Projekt Red, right? They were an indie company, effectively. Like they were not huge. They ended up making The Witcher 3, which follows the sort of principles that we're talking about. It's just it's not an MMO, but it's like WoW in a lot of ways, and because it's an RPG, and like a traditional classical RPG that you really feel invested in. And by the way, it's got a great soundtrack. But they were able to do that and not nickel and dime. Like they sold these massive DLC packs that were so much value for money. Partly because they're paying for people's wages and living in Poland.
Yeah.
So
and that's so true, Chip. Because you know what happens is like all these companies, they when Activision comes in, all their main thing is cost effect, and like income, and that's what they care about the most, because they have all these giant pay things they have to pay for and all that. So they get hooked on how much money can this game make, and do whatever we can to make that much money, no matter what it costs our image, no matter what it costs us, because at the end of the day, all that matters for those type of corporations is money in the pocket, how much money they made. Just like they said the other day, I heard this from Bellular, sub numbers are down, but they said this, sub numbers are down, but they're still making more money than they ever have because of all the microtransactions. And that's what they wanted to that was like what they cared about more than anything. They cared about not the sub numbers, not this. It's how much money the game is making because of the microtransactions, this and the other. And that's how corporations see things. Nowadays,
that's how corporations see things. You're right. Yeah. The corporation model, I think it's not necessarily going away, but WoW wasn't made in a massive corporation, right? Like Activision Blizzard did not make World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Blizzard made World of Warcraft. Yeah. And they were not like a tiny studio. They had some successes in the past, but it's nothing like, they were not a big company, The CD Projekt Red is probably way bigger than Blizzard was back then. I mean, someone correct me in the comments, but that's basically the point I'm making, is that the more people, the more corporation you get, the more middle management there is, the less efficient it is. If you have a relatively small, like medium-sized business making a game, and it's basically all the people you need, and then contract out if you need extra stuff done as and when you need it, then you reduce the overheads and you allow yourself to pay a good wage. Maybe don't even take the company public. Just keep it a private enterprise so you don't have to worry about shareholders, and crowdsource stuff. And people would be gagging to support a company that did that sort of thing. So I think basically all these companies that are sacrificing their player count, like the subscriber base, say, we don't need the subscribers, we're making money on these microtransactions. Okay, well, those subscribers are still alive. They still want that game, and somebody eventually will produce it for them. So they're sacrificing their long-term success for short-term gain, I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad, but it's. I think there's hope, like you said, Chimley. I think Classic WoW could be that spark. We'll see. Pantheon might be that spark. I think these games will always. I think these games will continue to exist now because we got Classic, and we'll see how it happens. I really do. But everything's getting cheaper. Everything's getting. Even if you think about things like building material, like even buildings don't look like they used to, man. Buildings are just put up so quickly, and movies. People are all about efficiency over quality and whatever, but that's, I think people like us, I'm not saying we're very important, but I'm just saying that people like us talking about it, and we make it aware, and hopefully someone listens to it, and the butterfly effect, you never know how those type of things go. So
quality over quantity. It's not about just putting out the numbers, and we need to go back into a world where people and this is, like you said, it goes with so many things, that where craftsmanship and artistic value and all this is actually means something. It's not about just putting out the numbers as much as we can, and we can make a movie that's has this name on there because we'll know it'll make money. Like, no, you should make a movie because you believe in something, or you want to get a certain message out, or you want to make some kind of amazing piece of art. Like that's how so many movies were made back in the day, and you look now and how many shit movies are out. How many movies have you seen in the last year they actually say we're a good movie, you know, and like it's sad,
yeah.
you know, and you get these Marvel movies. I'm not a huge fan of the whole Marvel thing and all that, and like, you know, once in a while there'll be a decent one and all this, but it's like it's been done over and over again because they know it'll make money. It's, you know, it's become this like you said, that blueprint. I mean, but people know it's a safe bet, you know what I mean, and everyone's. It seems like nowadays people are afraid to you know, take that step where we don't know what's that leap of faith where you don't know if it's going to be a success or not. Everyone wants that safe bet, and it's
pigs on a pan will eat whatever you throw them. But if you throw them, you know, some rotten corn and a carrot, it's pretty easy to guess which one they're going to go for. So when someone comes along with the thing that people have been starved for in all these industries, film and games, whatever it is, they're not going to be able to compete.
Yeah, it's true, man. Well, you know, this is why you keep making the content you make, Chim, and you know, like it even comes down to YouTube content. You know, we could all, like, you know, Chimley, you can make a video that you knew would get, you know, tens of thousands of views or hundreds of thousands of views if you wanted to make a friggin', you know, Fortnite video, this, that, and other, but you decide not to. You make a content that you believe in, that you care about, and that, to me, is the huge difference of a good content creator. Knowing that you could, if you wanted to, you could make a video about something that could get a lot of views, but to you care about what you care about, and, you know, your content gets the views it gets because, you know, and it will continue to get more because of the quality and because of the craftsmanship and, like, the amazing, you know, work and effort you put into it, and you're going to continue to grow. And I think, you know, your content is one of those, like, you know, you're one of those YouTubers out there that I really believe in, and I think has some amazing quality content. So just keep doing what you're doing, brother.
Yeah, and honestly, the secret for us is all lies in collaboration, dude. And
yes,
this level of success we've gained would not be possible if it wasn't for collaboration. I don't think so. And that's just something that I want to harp on over and over again when it comes to content creation. It's just like it's just really important. But anyway, we should probably wrap up. We gotta eat dinner soon. But I just wanted to, first of all, I mean, please let everyone know where they can find you, Chimley.
Yes.
Yeah, so my Chimley channel, obviously on YouTube, just type in CHIMLY. You can probably see it on screen now. That's my main channel, and I talk about various things, but my main bread and butter is the Scorecraft series, where I look at the music of the game and explain it in a way that you don't need any prior knowledge of music to understand. And people tell me that they actually learn a lot from it, so apparently I'm doing a good job of explaining it for a non-musician audience. And I'm also going to be getting out some series stuff about dungeon lore quite soon. I'm working on a script about that.
Perfect.
And yeah, it's really fun, actually. I'm enjoying it a lot. And yeah, I follow me on Twitch. I'll be streaming Classic as soon as I can, but other stuff in the meantime. And join my Discord, I suppose. And if you really like my content, obviously support me on Patreon, all of that jazz. But, you know, go and watch my stuff before you make that decision.
Yeah, so on the screen you'll see his YouTube, his Twitch, his Twitter, and your Discord links. So that'll all be there. And just please, guys, you're missing out if you haven't watched Chimley's content or subscribed to his content. I think him and Platinum are the two people I think have the most unique content out, because, you know,
very creative.
Yeah, very creative people, and it's great. It's really good stuff, and they've definitely been inspirations for us too. And Chimley, that goes the same. Well, you have.
Likewise.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you want to do some?
So if you guys listening on a podcast format, we have a YouTube channel as well. We do a lot more than just a podcast. So if you're listening on SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes, or any of your favorite podcast apps, we are also on YouTube at Defcamp Melderon TV. If you're listening on YouTube, you don't have to just watch it on your screen. You can take it with you. You can download it on your favorite podcasting system. Just search for DefTalk or Defcamp Melderon TV. We also upload Good Morning Azeroth there as well. And that's essentially basically it. I mean, Defcamp streams on Twitch and on YouTube at the name is Defcamp on Twitch and on Defcamp Melderon TV. Yeah, Defcamp. Finish up.
Yeah, no, I just want to say, if you want to catch up on the streams, I've been streaming the Classic while beta, and, you know, we'll continue streaming when Classic comes out as well. And so other than that, Twitch, YouTube, and
ClassicWall.live as well. We have guides on there.
ClassicWall.live. Yes.
And some tools for the community. If you are looking for a database or looking for a talent calculator, those will all be available as soon as the game launches. So we're building that stuff up now. So definitely head out to ClassicWall.live. Get yourself into the forums and see the amazing content that's on there. We also have community content like Chimley's content that isn't just guides. We have a whole page dedicated to stuff that's non-guide content.
Yeah, it's a really amazing community site, guys. So check it out if you get the chance.
And that's about it. Well, Chimley, thank you so much for being here. Sorry. Did you
I just want I was going to close it up, but yeah, you're good. Yeah, I was just going to say thank all you guys for coming out, and this was episode number 35 of DefTalk, right? 35.
35.
Damn.
Yep.
That's crazy. Wow. Yeah. So until next time, guys. This is Defcamp.
This is Melderon, and this is our special guest,
Chimley. Hello. Oh, goodbye, rather.
Yeah. Thanks,
Keep on
guys.
key binding and grinding, baby.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Peace.